Well, it's okay if you want to go about 5 miles away from your house, but get back quick. They don't go far. They want to talk about your dishwashers and how much water you're going to have in your dishwasher, even though they don't work. And all of the other things that you have that were so precious and dear and that you never really appreciated until now because they want to take them away. Your heating and cooling in your house, they want to change it. They want to change everything. These people. Biden and his radical left allies like to pose as defenders of democracy. You see, he was standing up there not so long ago with the pink and red background. That looked a little bit sinister. I don't know if he knew what the hell he was doing up there, but he was up there spewing the words that somebody wrote for him. You elected an outsider as your president, and it was about America first. We want to put our country first. They haven't done that in a long time, but we did it for 4 years, and that's why we did so well. That's why it was one of the great presidencies, they say. Even the opponents sometimes say that he did very well. I have to say, take it back, they scream. His people say, take it back. That base, we have to go out and earn it. And like in 2016, we just ran the whole east coast of the country, and that made up for California, which I actually believe that if they didn't have rigged elections out there, if they didn't have all the paper ballots, they send out like 36 million ballots, and nobody knows where the hell they're going to or coming from. I think a few people know where they're going to, and a few people know where they're coming from. But I think if you had a real election and Jesus came down and God came down and said, I'm going to be the scorekeeper here, I think it would win there. I think it would win in Illinois, and I think it would win in New York, which is all places that, in theory, evidence we have and everybody knows it, and they know it. The one thing they don't want to talk about is the election. They don't want to talk because they're guilty as hell. They cheated like hell. They know it. And you'll never find out all the ways, but we don't need all the ways because, it was, I think, 22,000 votes separated it. And we have millions and millions of votes. It's a very sad thing. So the most important part of what's coming up is to guard the vote. And you should go into Detroit, and you should go into Philadelphia, and you should go into some of these places, Atlanta, and you should go into some of these places, and we got to watch those votes when they come in. When they're being, shoved around in wheelbarrows and dumped on the floor, and everyone's saying, what's going on? We're like a third world nation, and we can't let it happen.
How do you do this? Where do you draw your strength from? We're talking about faith. How do you do this every day? How do you get up and fight for every single one of us?
It's probably the biggest question I get. The second biggest would be, they're not going to be allowed to do it again. Okay, you know what that means. Okay, that's number two. But number one is, how do you do it? One of the reasons is that I have the highest poll numbers people have virtually ever seen. You're beating these people by 60 points, and we're beating Biden by a lot. That difficult. This state is not that difficult. And it's a great state with great people. But she became the governor, and then she called me. She had a big problem. She was running against a very wealthy man, I believe a farmer, handsome man, they said, handsome, good-looking, wealthy, had everything, Democrat, and he was way up in the polls, and he was going to win. And I came in, I did a big rally, I did a big endorsement of her, I fought like hell, and she ended up winning, right? And then the second time was much easier, but I also kept you in the position of first. You were first in the nation, which I didn't have to do. So I did all these things, and then I spoke to Kim about 4 or 5 months ago, whatever, and she said, I'd like to remain neutral. I said, I'd like to remain neutral too. I didn't have to come here and do rallies for you. And she said, what do you mean? Well, because we're first in the nation, I'd like to remain. I said, I'm the one that kept you first in the nation. She said, well, it's, because of that, though, I'd like to remain neutral. I'd like to be able to go and really politic and work with all of the candidates. I said, all of the candidates are running against me. That doesn't sound like so good. And it wasn't a quid pro quo, as they used to say in impeachment hoax number 1. Which there were none, except with them. They had the quid pro quo. They're the ones that cheated. We didn't cheat at all. But, she said, I think I'd like to be able to campaign with everybody. I said, so you're actually telling me that you want to be able to campaign with everybody because you're first in the nation. I'm the one that made you first in the nation, right through. The drugs are higher than ever before. We had them way down. And I had a deal with President Xi of China. They were going to criminalize fentanyl. If you make fentanyl and you get caught, they're going to criminalize it. And you know what their penalty is if you get caught with drugs? Death penalty for drug dealers and for drug makers. And they were going to criminalize it. It was all done, and then we had the result of this ridiculous election where they used COVID to cheat, and other things too. You don't even have to go into ballot stuffing, the 2,000 mules and all of that. You don't have to. And by the way, the 2,000 mules, hundreds of thousands, millions of ballots we're talking about. We're talking about millions and millions. And I have to tell you, Jimmy Carter, as you know, our First Lady went to the funeral of Rosalind Carter. It was a beautiful event, by the way, and everybody was very nice, really nice. But Jimmy Carter is in his latter years, 99, in his latter years, he's got to be a happy man because his administration was brilliant compared to what we have now.